Hello everyone, this is a VoD review of Cloud9 versus 100 Thieves. I'm John Valentine and let's get into it. So far looking at these team compositions, Cloud9 has not necessarily 3 winning lanes, but 3 pushing lanes, because the Aatrox should always win the top lane matchup, and the Syndra should also always pretty much win this mid lane matchup. And while bot lane isn't necessarily a winning lane for Cloud9, there's a lot of burst damage on the Ezreal Alistar, and Ezreal is just kind of a stronger champion than Corki. Within the laning phase, Corki has a lot of AoE damage and can push out waves really aggressively fairly easily. So even though Sneaky shouldn't necessarily be able to get much of a huge advantage over the Ezreal, he should be able to shove the lane in and provide pressure to allow Cloud9 to, and specifically Svenskeren, to aggressively push forward into the 100 Thieves jungle and prevent 100 Thieves from getting much of any vision past the river. On the side of 100 Thieves, you have a scaling top laner, and what really results to skirmish champions across the board. Ezreal really wants to 1-3-1, as does the Lissandra to a certain extent. However, she is in a matchup that is very difficult for her, so in this particular team compositional matchup, 100 Thieves isn't really going to be capable of 1-3-1ing. However, Lissandra and Vladimir and Ezreal and Alistar and Jarvan, to some extent, all are very powerful skirmish champions. They all do very well in messy, prolonged team fights and 2v2, 3v3, 4v4 type situations. So that's really what 100 Thieves is going to be looking to do here. However, it will be difficult for them because coming out of this draft, Cloud9 has managed to get themselves 3 pushing lanes without actually having any sort of real scaling disadvantage. Yes, the Vladimir is going to be more powerful than the Aatrox in late game teamfights. Yes, the Ezreal has some more pronounced power spikes than the Corki does. But Cloud9, unlike, say, the Optic team comp from last game, are incredibly capable of letting the game go late and still really going toe-to-toe, especially if they can maintain the 1-3-1 and keeping their winning solo lane matchups going. Right here, we do see kind of a great example of the winning solo lane matchup for Syndra. The cleanse is really impactful against the Lissandra, and ultimately, Niski's ready for the gank, and Soligo is not really taking advantage of all of the tools Lissandra has to survive this matchup. There are ways that Lissandra can kind of try and dance in and out of Syndra's Q range to bait out Syndra Qs and still dodge them. However, Niski not throwing out those Qs as aggressively, you see he still has a decent chunk of his mana pool, and Soligo kind of failing to dodge the Ws and the stuns. Right now we see 100 Thieves loses out, or C9 gets some nice vision into the 100 Thieves jungle. We saw something similar happen against TSM in another earlier game, and 100 Thieves and Cloud9 is able to say, okay, we have this vision here. We now know that Anda started on this side of the map, so he's probably top side now. So Licorice play defensively, Licorice plays defensively, Anda isn't able to accomplish anything in that topside gank. Placing vision, I'm sure this should be a familiar concept to many of you, but wards are not just about what they get you vision of, they're also what they don't get you vision of. So that ward didn't show Anda. Anda didn't appear on that ward, which implied that he was elsewhere on the map. Cloud9 also note that the Gromp just respawned on top of that ward, so it is also fairly easy for Cloud9 to say, okay, Anda is probably on his way back to the bottom side of the map because his camps on this side of the map are now respawning. Svenskeren comes in, is able to counter this out, and I have no idea what Aframi was trying to do here. Yes, Anda is coming, but you can see Svenskeren is also going to be there at the same time. As 100 Thieves, you should know how much damage your Alistar combo plus Ignite plus Ezreal is able to do before Sneaky gets to flash out. On top of that, Sneaky has heal. And if you look at this 3v3, there isn't really any way that that 100 Thieves is really going to be able to win it. We're going to take a step back and you'll kind of see why that is. But the 100 Thieves 3v3, like, if you look at these champions, Jarvan is a champion that wants to kind of dogpile into the fight. Alistar is a champion that wants to dogpile in. Sejuani, a champion that wants to dogpile in. Galio, a champion that wants to dogpile in. So just looking at the way these champions pair up, you're going to end up with this kind of giant mess of a bunch of champions all sitting on top of each other. Now, if you compare Ezreal to Corki, Ezreal's damage is almost entirely single target. He is not going to be able to take any sort of advantage of that. He is not going to be able to thread in W's or Q's through the tanky Galio onto Sneaky. And he is not going to be able to impact this fight in necessarily the way that a Corki is. Corki has significant AoE damage this early in the game on his Q and on his E, and Corki is able to just have more of an impact and do significantly more damage into this giant clump of champions that is the natural outcome of Sejuani, Galio, Alistar, Jarvan all meeting each other. On top of that, Alistar's combo is already down, and his combo lands only onto Zazel, who is tanky, has the Galio taunt up, and you can kind of see how there isn't much of a world in which this is a successful fight for 100 Thieves. Both AD carries kind of limp away. Anda has to burn his flash, which gives Niski a bunch of additional pressure. It gives Licorice a bunch of additional pressure into matchups they're already winning. And this is ultimately a really poorly planned play from 100 Thieves. You could tell Svenskeren wasn't really expecting it because it did take him a few seconds to actually turn around and walk towards the bottom lane, which is really the only reason I feel that 100 Thieves was able to survive with all of their members still alive from that kind of a botched play. But that's really not the kind of aggressive moves you want to be going for, especially when you can see the Sejuani right there, and the 3v3 is kind of so slated against you. So both bot lanes get a recall off. Bang is going to pick up a bit of a lead here because of the teleport advantage. This is kind of what you would expect out of the Corki Ezreal matchup. Sneaky is able to shove up, but he doesn't have teleport, and maybe he should, but because Sneaky doesn't have the teleport, Bang is able to kind of come in, get that lead. However, Sneaky, being Corki, is going to be able to continue shoving out the bottom wave and still provide Cloud9 with that map pressure, even though he isn't necessarily ahead of the Ezreal anyway. And to see that mid lane and bottom lane pressure is going to translate into a Mountain Drake for Cloud9. Maybe not necessarily immediately, but soon. This is standard. This is what you expect when you have this pressure across the map. We see Licorice playing a bit defensively, which would imply Cloud9 doesn't know where Anda is. And after having just seen him bot lane, it would follow that he might be spending time top soon. However, he didn't actually get much of a chance to clear out camps in the bot lane, on the bot side of the map. His blue buff has just come up, and the Drake is going to be a point of contention. However, there is this winning 3v3, as I mentioned, on the side of Cloud9. They have the bot lane pressure, and Anda is going to get basically nothing for coming all the way down to this side of the map. Some things to note with the items. Niski has gone for the double Dark Seal, which is something you go for if you're really trying to push out your lane and you want that extra mana, that extra sustain to be able to constantly shove and prevent your lane opponent from ever really leaving. Which we see the double Dark Seal kind of brought out in a lot of LCS games for the wrong reasons, and this is actually the perfect time to use it. This is a point in the game, and this is a matchup where you want to be shoving out your mid lane as hard as possible. You want to be shoving out your bot lane as hard as possible, and you want to be using that to push any 100 Thieves vision out of the river, push your own vision into the shallow parts of the 100 Thieves blue side jungle, and then heavily contest that vision. Let 100 Thieves know that if they walk into your vision, you will engage onto them and you will punish them for doing so. force them aggressively out of their side of the jungle, and get free drakes out of doing so. Get free turret plates out of doing so. On top of that, being able to have this constant pressure in the mid lane and bot lane make it really, really difficult for Anda to make anything happen in the top side, because the moment Anda shows himself on the top side of the map, Cloud9 will have a very easy time turret diving bottom lane or just taking the Drake for free and then pushing onto the bot lane turret. Yes, you could argue that Anda would be able to get the trade kill onto top side and maybe push down top side turret, but when the Rift Herald isn't even up yet, it's very difficult to justify making trades and giving away things on the bottom side of the map for a little bit of pressure top on what is going to be a losing matchup for most of the game anyway. We're going to see recalls come in from Cloud9. Bit of a spike onto Corki having the Phage and the Sheen, and we're going to see Cloud9 already pinging onto the river, onto the Mountain Drake. It's pretty fun. It's what you would expect. It's what you want Cloud9 to be doing in this situation, is use their map advantage, use their pressure in the bottom side. Bang and Aphromoo also take a really late recall and end up just completely abandoning it. So not only does Cloud9 get this Drake for free, they're going to also be able to shove out bot lane at the same time, which is really, really nice for them. Yes, Bang gets a bit of a nice recall. He gets to recall when he wants to. Kind of come back to lane with a bit more spent gold than the Corki has. But the fact that Cloud9 get that, not only do they get the Drake for free, but they get to get the Drake and pressure the lane on top of that, which allows them to get the Drake and also push in for vision advantage, compared to 100 Thieves who just get a bit of a recall off. If you're looking at this game from the 100 Thieves standpoint, yes, you're waiting for certain item breakpoints on the Ezreal. You're waiting for a bit more AP to come in onto the Lissandra so that she can really start bursting people down. But mostly your team composition is looking to skirmish, and Drakes are a fantastic opportunity to do so, and giving up Mountain Drakes, even in situations like this where it would be difficult to contest them, is not necessarily ideal. Looking in, we're now seeing the double Dark Seal out of the Lissandra as well. I think this is really poor. Yes, you are hoping to be able to counter out the Syndra push with her double Dark Seal. However, it's already pretty difficult to turret dive a Lissandra, so it's kind of okay if the wave gets pushed in. You're already not going to be at a place where you can outshove the Syndra or outpush her realistically in this matchup. So you're not getting anywhere near as much value out of the double Dark Seal as the Syndra is and as Cloud9 is. So taking it on the Lissandra here, really, I don't think is necessary. On top of that, we're seeing the kind of prisoner's dilemma that is boots in the mid lane. And that if you find yourself in a situation where one team has one mid laner has Merc Treads and the other has Sork Pen, that is highly favorable within the 1v1 to the player with Merc Treads. If both players go Sork Pen, then they both get to have kind of a heightened impact on the rest of the game. I'm going to pause here so I can finish talking before going into this fight. And if both players have Merc Treads, then both players are going to have kind of less of an impact on the other members of the team. So Soligo takes Merc Treads. I don't know if he didn't see Niski's boot choice at the time, but taking the Merc Treads here, yes, there is a lot of CC, and the tenacity is especially valuable, but as this skirmishing team comp who is really hoping to get to a point where Lissandra has enough AP that when you combine that with the Ezreal ult and the either the Alistair combo or the Jarvan combo or the burst damage from Vladimir, they're able to burst down one or multiple members of Cloud9. Delaying that breakpoint, delaying that the point at which you get enough AP to really start making that happen is a pretty significant cost, especially when you're already losing or at least being out pressured in all of your lanes. So it's immediate strength. It helps you individually survive your matchup with the Syndra, but it's going to make some of these team fights a lot harder. We're going to see right here, both mid laners don't really have much of a way to trade with each other in this 2v2. Niski has Cleanse, so anything that Soligo puts onto him as far as crowd control isn't going to be very effective. Combine that with the fact that Soligo so far has very little ability power, and the damage onto Niski also isn't going to be particularly huge. Meanwhile, Soligo has the Merc Treads, and Niski has the Pen Boots, so any damage that Niski tries to deal to Soligo is going to be less impactful than the damage he can deal to Anda, who has 0 MR. So moving into this team fight, this 2v2, both mid laners are looking to use their abilities more so on the enemy jungler than on the other mid laner, because both of their kits are right now going to be more impactful used onto the junglers rather than the mid laners. However, as I mentioned, when you have these, the trade-off between Sork Pen and Merc Treads is that the Sork Pen boots are stronger when you're interacting with the other members of the enemy team. They're weaker in the 1v1, so Soligo is better prepared for this 1v1, but Soligo with the Merc Treads is not going to be able to output anywhere near as much damage onto the Sejuani as Niski is. So this is already an unfavorable fight for 100 Thieves. And I believe Anda is going to go down here. But this is 100 Thieves, and like they are the skirmish comp. They ultimately want to be 2v2ing and 3v3ing and taking messy aggressive fights. But they're not playing out the game thus far in a way that promotes that game plan. Currently, they're pushing this lead they have in the bottom lane because Ezreal is just a stronger champion than Corki is and has the teleport to be able to farm up more effectively. However, the way that Soligo is building and the way that Anda is moving on the map and the way that the 100 Thieves bot lane is timing their recalls and using their windows of aggression is not really pushing the 100 Thieves agenda of set up skirmishes around the Lissandra and the Jarvan. So anyway, Anda dies, map resets. We're going to see continued pressure from Cloud9 out of all of the lanes. They have to primarily play a little more towards topside because that is where most of the Cloud9 vision is. And at this point in the game, we've hit that kind of 12-minute mark where Rift Herald starts to become a serious concern. There is no dragon up, so playing towards the top side of the map is really what you want to be doing. However, if you're Cloud9, it's very important to note that Ezreal has teleport and Sneaky does not. So it will be a lot easier for 100 Thieves to come into a fight around the Rift Herald than it will be for C9. 100 Thieves, however, tries to make a play here. Important to note, there is no ultimate onto Syndra. There is an ultimate onto all of the members of Cloud9. And just watch how this fight plays out. It starts with Soligo kind of being too far forward into the Cloud9 vision. And he gets hit up. Hold on, I didn't quite see the claw there. Soligo a bit too far forward into the Cloud9 vision. The Galio ult comes through, and 100 Thieves make for this engage. Important to note, however, that the Alistar ult is ticking, and C9 isn't DPSing him at all, so he's not getting much value out of that. The Headbutt Pulverize is on cooldown, so Alistar doesn't have a way back into this fight other than just walking in. I believe the Claw is on cooldown because we just don't see it come out of Soligo here. And Anda just goes in, and 100 Thieves doesn't have a way into this fight, and Anda just dies. Yes, this would have been advantageous for them if they'd maybe taken a little bit more slowly and the TP from Bang had come in, However, Licorice still had pressure top, so he was going to get to that fight before Someday. And there was still no ultimate for Solio. They needed to wait for that to come off cooldown. And ultimately, 100 Thieves just kind of completely bungles that play. We're going to see right here, Aphromoo is going to completely disrespect the Cloud9 vision in the river. And this is, like, he knew Niski was there. He should have known there was a risk that this happens. And has no ult, has no flash. He is just barely able to limp away after kind of forcing Soligo to burn his ultimate defensively. And that does give Cloud9 priority onto this Rift Herald. However, worth noting, Bang is here, Sneaky isn't. Zeyzal is low mana, Niski has no health and no ultimate, Svenskeren has no ultimate, Zeyzal has no ultimate. Someday and Anda both have their powerful teamfight ultimate abilities. And coming into this, it's mainly a 3 versus 4 in favor of Cloud9. However, Niski has no health, no ultimate, no cleanse, and because he's sitting on a ward here, he just dies at the beginning of this fight. So it ends up being a 3 versus 3, in which there are 2 ultimates to one ultimate in the matchups of this team. There is no mana on Zeyzal. There is 100 Thieves playing the skirmish comp, getting that 3v3, which the skirmish composition really, really wants, and that's how they want to be playing this game. So ultimately, Cloud9 is just playing kind of directly into what 100 Thieves wants to be doing by aggressively going for that Rift Herald. Yes, you are the team that is pressuring all 3 lanes, and you have this vision advantage, and the Rift Herald would be really beneficial to you. However, you are giving 100 Thieves, the skirmish team comp, the opportunity to skirmish when you are actually at a bit of a weaker state. Yes, there's a world in which Niski isn't standing on a ward there and is able to contribute to that fight. I don't think that is really an excuse, because Niski could still just randomly die, being on kind of the wrong side of that wall and not having the cleanse or really much of a way to defend against Bang or Soligo just kind of going in on him. And the fight falls apart. Sneaky isn't at a point yet where he can package in and just burst people down, especially the tanky Vladimir. And ultimately is an over-aggressive attempt at the Rift Herald by Cloud9, and it was really kind of playing into 100 Thieves' hands. It's exactly what 100 Thieves wants to be doing right now. They want the map to be, they want these aggressive skirmishes. They don't want Cloud9 just pushing out their waves and taking advantage of that map pressure that they have in all 3 lanes. So Cloud9 plays directly into 100 Thieves' hands, loses their opportunity to pick up the Rift Herald. I believe they've got the smite on it, but basically loses the Rift Herald, loses control of this Dragon Pit, which they're able to then reclaim because of the pressure mid lane, and because Anda is somewhere. But they really could have taken that Rift Herald in a much cleaner way if they had taken that chunk onto Aphromoo, played it a little more slowly, used that advantage to move into the 100 Thieves jungle, get that aggressive vision, wait for Sneaky to show up so that Bang's TP advantage isn't relevant. And that's how C9 could have taken that Rift Herald cleanly and used that to break down the mid turret and open up the map to take control of the 100 Thieves jungle, take the Mountain Drake with said control, and really start to snowball the game. They are going to be able to pick up the Mountain Drake anyway because they do still have this pressure. Losing out on the Rift Herald isn't the end of the world. This team isn't dependent on the Rift Herald. They have this pressure in all 3 lanes that they can leverage instead. But it would have been really nice for C9 to pick that up, and 100 Thieves being able to stop them from getting it is really a great way for them to kind of stay like pretty even. They have so far actually done a really solid job of shutting down this Cloud9 aggression and shutting down these side lane advantages and mid lane advantages that Cloud9 has really had so far. There's a gold lead so far for 100 Thieves, even though Cloud9 has the significantly superior early game composition for controlling the map in the early game. And To a significant extent, that is because Cloud9 kind of bungled some plays, and the plays that 100 Thieves bungled, they didn't bungle quite as hard, or they were not as high variance plays, or not as high stakes. But even so, 100 Thieves managing to really keep the game fairly even, despite the advantages that Cloud9 should have had moving into this mid game. However, Cloud9 still are able to really kind of push 100 Thieves' vision out of the river. They do still have this pressure in the top lane, even though their bot lane pressure has kind of fallen off. 100 Thieves going for some chip damage. This isn't a real, or it is a real engage. That's questionable out of Anda. Anda and Afro don't have damage on their own, and Bang and Soligo were not close enough to have any impact on that fight. There was still pressure mid for C9. That was really poor out of 100 Thieves. There is, I mean, they don't, again, that's really been the theme of this game so far, is 100 Thieves kind of making some rather questionable maneuvers and surviving on slim amounts of health and losing just summoners for them, and then Cloud9 making slightly more aggressive maneuvers, but getting punished in the skirmish because they lose the skirmish because 100 Thieves wants to be skirmishing. It's interesting because all of the 100 Thieves has really done kind of a really poor job at getting the skirmishes that they want. The only real skirmish they've been able to get was one that Cloud9 handed them on a silver platter, rather than, like, they've been trying to force, but in every situation they've been trying to force, there's been a number of reasons why that force wouldn't work. We just saw in the mid lane, Anda was trying to force onto the tanky members of Cloud9 when all of his damage dealers were out of range, and he had to flash out as a result. So we're back to seeing wave pressure for Cloud9. We're getting to see Corki kind of split pushing alone, which is a good place for Corki to be. He's really solid as a 1-3-1 champion if he is one of the ones, as opposed to Ezreal, who's a 1-3-1 champion who wants to be in the middle lane. Because Corki can shove out waves very, very well, and has really solid defensive tools to get out, and can siege and pressure down turrets against short-range champions like the Vladimir very, very well. We are going to see, however, Cloud9 kind of ceding control over the river and over the Baron Pit, which, to my mind, seems like a mistake. I don't think they necessarily needed to back off like that unless they are planning a recall soon, and were therefore needing to give up that vision anyway. But they back off into their jungle and to take the blue buff, I guess, but give up kind of that control over the river. 100 Thieves claims it, then immediately gives it back over to Cloud9, because without the Lissandra present, with the Vladimir kind of stuck up in the top lane, they do, I believe, lose this 3 versus 3. I'm not going to go into detail about Aphromu headbutting the wrong person and causing Bang to die. That was a significant mistake on his part. However, if when he pulverizes Niski away, that puts him really far out of position, and either way there, I think Aphromu is liable to die. Moving into this fight, 100 Thieves are trying to get into a position where they can contest the Baron, and Cloud9, unlike a lot of the other teams in North America, gets that vision into the 100 Thieves jungle and then defends it. And they basically say, hey, we have vision here. If you want to try and ignore that or contest it or walk into our vision, we will actually engage on you and we will actually punish you for doing so, because we are in a position to do that. But in this fight, Bang just dies. Aphromu pretty much has to go in somewhere. He should have gone on to Niski, and Bang would have survived, and it would have just been a 1-for-0 with just Aphromu dying, or maybe Bang's DPS in that fight could have caused there to be a trade kill for 100 Thieves. And that's got to be tilting as Bang. But either way, Cloud9 picks up kind of 2 easy kills in the 3v3, which is, I believe, a bit of a favored 3v3 for them, because there is MR onto the Ezreal, but the Syndra has a lot more threat onto the Ezreal than the Ezreal is going to be able to put onto Syndra through the tanky front line of the Sejuani and the Galio. So it's close. If 100 Thieves plays well, the 3v3 can go even, but it's generally going to be Cloud9 favored. On top of that, having the advantageous push in both of the side lanes because of the strength of the Corki split push and of the Aatrox, Cloud9 able to push down top turret, able to push now very aggressively into the 100 Thieves jungle. And this is exactly what you want to be seeing out of a team composition that has this kind of pressure in their side lanes. Take control of that jungle. If 100 Thieves tries to enter that jungle, be in position to punish them for it. Don't let them contest that vision. Cloud9 able to do that, able to prevent TSM from getting any vision, or prevent 100 Thieves, apologies, just classing a TSM game, prevent 100 Thieves from getting any of the vision, and decides he's going to walk past his vision line, he has a pink ward there, but that's really past the 100 Thieves line of scrimmage, and just die. Talking about earlier, we saw Aphromoo fail to, or headbutt pulverize the wrong person when Bang was hit by the Glacial Prison, and it caused Bang to just die to the Syndra Burst. You can kind of tell that Bang was yelling at him for that, because right here, Bang again gets hit by the Glacial Prison. Aphromoo then flashes over the wall to headbutt pulverize the Syndra. This is never going to work in the situation. It would have been a questionable thing to do. He was in a situation where he had to headbutt pulverize someone, and he absolutely chose the wrong person. This was not necessarily a situation where he had to headbutt pulverize somebody. But, Bang yelled at him for not doing it last time, so he says, you know what, fine, I'll headbutt pulverize the Syndra here. And he flashes over the wall, heavily commits to a fight, because he's now burned all of his ways of getting out. Heavily commits to a fight in which Lissandra is just not present. If we look at the state of the map, right before, or right after Aphromoo was flashed in, he's getting chunked out. Licorice is 1v1ing Someday. Svenskeren has the Gargoyle Stoneplate ticking and is just kind of soaking up the low DPS Ezreal. And Lissandra isn't here to contribute to this fight. So, with Someday unable to get his big AoE off because he's kind of locked in this 1v1 with Licorice, and Lissandra's not in this fight, this is a really easy teamfight win for Cloud9. 100 Thieves shouldn't be taking this fight. And Aphromoo, yes, Bang got hit by the Glacial Prison. He should not have got hit by the Glacial Prison. Aphromoo also aggressively goes in to try and defend Bang from the Syndra Burst. When Bang now has Merc Treads, Syndra has built a bit more defensively. And Aphromoo commits to the fight. He dies. 100 Thieves follows up on Aphramoo's engage when they don't have Soligo until much later into the fight. And the rest of 100 Thieves also dies. And Cloud9 is going to pick up the Baron. This is really rough on the side of 100 Thieves, because you have this skirmish composition that has been so far kind of unable to get the skirmishes that you really want. You've been losing out on pretty much every single attempt you've made to engage, other than the Rift Herald that was a really solid flank, and it goes too far forward, gets chunked. Bang comes in to try and rescue him, gets Glacial Prisoned. Aphromoo jumps the wall, flashes the wall to try and rescue Bang. He dies. 100 Thieves is now stuck in this fight, and after kind of baiting each other one by one into it, and there's just very little communication out of 100 Thieves. They absolutely could have just left Anda to die, or just left Bang to die, or just left Aphromoo to die, and they do none of those things, and their members are switching off who's going in and who's walking out, and they're not coordinating their team fight tools in any real way, and the fight just falls apart. Cloud9 at this point is remarkably far ahead. They have this really superior 1-3-1. They're choosing to use the 4-1 instead, which makes sense to some extent because there is the teleport on to Bang. I would have been happy to see a 1-3-1 out of Cloud9 here as well, but it's possible they just saw the size of the wave in the bottom lane with the 2 cannon minions and said, okay, let's push up with these cannons, because the Baron empowered cannon minions are very strong. They get this triple cannon wave in the bot side, which is pretty much impossible for 100 Thieves to do anything against as long as Cloud9 is there ready to protect these cannon minions. And Licorice just really has to be mid lane to provide the Baron buff to those additional cannon minions. And 100 Thieves are running out of options, or they are pretty much out of options at this point. They can't. The siege is untenable, so they need a 5v5. They need a fight. However, the 100 Thieves 5v5 is not fantastic. It's decent, but they would prefer to be fighting 4v4 or 3v3. However, Cloud9 is as a unit in their base, and the only really out 100 Thieves has is to get a massive engage with the Lissandra Claw in plus Stealth Ult and then a giant Hemo Plague to really burst down all of C9. However, Soligo gets chunked out, has to burn the Stealth Ult on himself. Someday goes in alone because Cloud9 is clumped up for this Dream Hemo Plague, but there's no backup damage because Soligo got chunked and had to burn the Stealth Ult on himself. And there's not, at this point, 100 Thieves has lost their options. Yeah, they all died and they're going to lose. Even if they hadn't died, with the ultimates down, there's actually nothing that they can do to stop this fight, to stop this game-ending push. So that was Cloud9 versus 100 Thieves. Really kind of a disappointing game from the side of 100 Thieves. Like, from from a layman's perspective, they did nothing and lost the game. That's not entirely true. They did realize to some extent that they were a skirmish team comp and they were trying to make these skirmishes happen. However, they did so with such a lack of communication and coordination, and really a lack of knowledge of when they were actually able to engage and when they were not, that they looked very weak in this game. They were trying to make the aggressive engages to make the skirmishes that they were dependent on happen. I think picking a skirmish team composition against Cloud9 is a very intelligent move, because Cloud9, whether or not they are favored in skirmishes, will often take them. However, 100 Thieves were just kind of unable to pick fights that were beneficial. The 3 pushing lanes on Cloud9's side in the early game were really, really powerful, and the vision that they were able to gain from that really shut down 100 Thieves' ability to make these skirmishes happen and to make these plays happen. On the side of Cloud9, they did take skirmishes they shouldn't have taken with the Rift Herald and a few other plays. However, they played their team comp fairly well. They had the 3 pushing lanes, really powerful draft out of Cloud9. And unlike a lot of other teams in North America, they were able to really take advantage of that. They were pushing into that aggressive vision into the TSM jungle, and they were defending it. They were there to punish 100 Thieves. This is not TSM that was playing. And they were able to punish 100 Thieves for trying to enter that vision. Unlike many other teams in North America, which will get that vision, and then just kind of walk away and let it fall away again. Really, really solid looking game from Cloud9. Their weaknesses, as we've mentioned before, of playing too aggressively and taking skirmishes they shouldn't take, they did show, but they did also do a really solid job of playing out their team composition in the way that their team composition is meant to be played out. So, GG's. That was 100 Thieves versus Cloud9. I hope you enjoyed. I'm John Valentine. Thanks for watching.